As Paddy mentioned there at the start, and as I mentioned myself, I am from Cork, Irish by birth, Cork by the grace of God, and I've had even more luck because I grew up in Cork City. And I'd like to share the story from Cork City as well, if I may. And it has to do with that oft-celebrated and much-storied school by the name of the North Man. Did you ever hear the North Man? Yes. Well, I can tell you, lads, with my hand on my heart, there are many famous past pupils. There's Tomas McCurtain, Jack Lynch, Neil Tobin, but with my hand on my heart, it is a school of behaviours, gladiators, cat farters, clowns, scuts and scoundrels. This is the truth. And that opinion is in no way coloured by the fact that I attended Coláiste Crease, the long-time sporting rivals of the Northman. But the dramatic tension in this story anyway is a result of a band of bold boys from the Northman. You see, if you were standing on Shandon Street in Cork, right, and if you came down the hill towards the Northgate Bridge, there at the bottom of the hill is O'Connor's funeral home. Now the problem is that was the route that the Northman boys would take at lunchtime every day on their way into town. And you'll never guess what they did. They go into the funeral parlour where the corpse will be laid out. They take out a cigarette and they put that fag between the lips of the dearly departed. Brazen. It's a true story now. And this was going on for weeks and weeks and months, and the undertaker was at his wit's end as to what to do, until eventually he hit upon a plan. And one day he powdered his face, and he got into the coffin himself, and he waited for his opportunity, and the lads came in, and they deposited the cigarette between his lips, and he sat up out of the coffin, and he said, "Jubilai." It's a true story. Okay. Anyway, I'd like to take you back over the plains and the hills and out across the bay again to Cape Clear for another story that took place there, and again, maybe a long, long time ago, I'd say. And this is about a guy called Dahi. And poor old Dahi never got the rub of the green in his life. He was surrounded, beset on all sides by misfortune. Just to put it into perspective a little bit, this fella never finished on the right side of a Christmas cracker, do you know? If his ship were to come in, it's a certainty he'd be at the airport, you know? The way that Lady Luck treated him, it was as if he had weed on her finest carpet, you know? He had bad luck the whole time. And as the Shanachal says, "As Kira Kaur Day on Doris," or God's help is close at hand. So he decided that what he'd do was that he'd go and talk to God, and he'd ask God why he had no luck, and see if God could do something about it. And the old people, the wiser people on Cape Clear, held that if you went to the high cliffs by the Poul Duracha, and if you threw back your head and roared at the top of your voice, that it was a certainty that God would hear you. So one day, rather than spend the day as he normally would, leaning over the half door and admiring the rain, he decided to set out for the high cliffs by the Poul Duracha and talk to God. And he was walking for a while when he saw a wolf up ahead of him, who was not on holidays. He was living there. But anyway, the wolf was moaning and groaning, grousing and grumbling, bawling and belly aching, but he gave over when he saw that Dahi was coming, and he asked him, "Now, where are you going?" And Dahi said, "I'm off to the high cliffs, Poul Duracha. I'm going to talk to God. I'm going to ask him why I have no luck and see if he can sort that out for me." "Oh, that's brilliant," said the wolf. "Listen, if you get to talk to him, will you ask him a question for me? Will you ask him why I have these awful, awful pains in my stomach?" "Well, of course," said Dahi. He was a nice fellow. And on he walked. And he was walking for a little while more when he saw ahead of him a tree. And that tree was moaning and groaning and grousing and grumbling and bawling and belly aching too, which was a little strange, but there you go, it happened. And again the tree kind of stopped when it saw Dahi coming and asked him, "Where are you going?" Very nosy tree, much like the nosy wolf. But anyway, he said, "I'm off to Poul Duracha, the high cliffs. I'm going to talk to God. I'm going to ask him why I have no luck and see if he can sort that out for me." "Brilliant," said the tree. "Listen, if you get to talk to him, will you ask him a question for me?" "Why, well, of course," said Dahi. "Listen, would you ask him, why is it that I have these terrible, terrible pains in my roots. No bother, said Dahi, and off he went. Again, walking for a little while, when he saw up ahead of him a woman. Well, what a woman, lads. This was a woman and a half. This was like Chrissy 10 years ago now. This was... I mean, he was enchanted by the glint in her eye, by the clarity of her complexion, by the generous expanse of her décolletage. I mean, Bhavacalach, Pearlach, Dreamlach, Barachas, a Carlod, Cravach, Shillaleg, a Talavas, a Grin Scob, and a Druch, she'd a fine head of hair, and I mean, look, if Scarlett Johansson was standing next to her, you wouldn't even see Scarlett. She was unreal, unreal. But she too was moaning and groaning and grousing and grumbling and bawling and belly aching. And the cynics among you say, sure, that's all women do, but we won't have any of that. We won't have any of that. But she too stopped when she saw Dahi, and she asked him, where are you going? And he said, well, I'm off to the high cliffs by the Poldurach. I'm going to talk to God. I'm going to ask him why I have no luck and if he can sort that out for me. Oh, that's brilliant, she said. Will you ask him a question for me? Ask him why I have these horrible, horrible pains in my heart. Not a bother, said Dahi, and on he went. So before long, he got to the high cliffs, he took up his regal stance, he threw back his head, and he roared at the top of his voice, God! 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 And he didn't say yeah. He said, what in the name of me do you want? Because I think that Dahi had interrupted his tea break or something. I want to know why I have no luck, and I want to know if you can sort that out for me. And God said to him, it's not that you have no luck, it's simply that you haven't found it yet. You have to go and look for it. Oh, thanks. All right, so. And he was about to turn on his heel and head away when he remembered the three questions, which he duly asked, got the answers, and then headed for home. And on his way home, of course, he met that beautiful woman again. And she said, oh, did you talk to him? I did. And did he answer my question? He did. Let me see now. He said that the reason you have those horrible, horrible pains in your heart is because you're lonely. What you need to do is find an honest man and marry him. And on hearing this, she looked him up and down, liked what she saw, and said, listen, I have a house, I have a little bit of money, not a bad cook. You look like an honest man, would you marry me? And he said, I'm desperately sorry, I'm in a bit of a rush. I have to find my luck. I have to go looking for it. And on he went. And he wasn't walking long when again he met the tree. And the tree said to him, oh geez, did you talk to him? I did. And what did he say? Well, he said, let me see. He said, the reason you have those terrible, terrible pains in your roots is because someone buried a big treasure chest amongst them, gold and silver. And all you need to do is get someone to dig it up. And on hearing this, the tree looked him up and down with its eyes and said, sure, look, wouldn't you do it? Would you take it away with you? And he said, I'm desperately sorry, I'm in a bit of a rush. I have to find my luck. I'm very sorry, but I have to go and look for it. And on he went. And then he came as far as the wolf. And the wolf, on seeing him, very excited again, said, did you talk to him? I did. What did he say? He said, I think now, the reason you have those awful, awful pains in your stomach is because you're hungry. And what you need to do is eat something. And I'm sure you can figure out the rest. Just before I go, I'd like to say thanks again very much. I've really enjoyed the evening. I'm looking forward to the next few stories. Just perhaps a memory that I'd like to share. The best conversation I ever overheard on Cape Clear, when I used to work in the pub there, with Tommy, the proprietor, senior barman, self-proclaimed ladies' man. And I remember it was a Sunday. This old couple walked in and they were a bit frail looking. And I know that it was a Sunday because I remember they were both kitted out in Clare jerseys. They were into the island for the day on a day trip, and they had come into the pub to watch the match. And anyway, they approached the bar, and Tommy said, "What'll you have?" And says herself to himself, "What did he say?" He said, "What'll you have?" "Oh, gin and tonic, please." And then Tommy said, "Okay, grand," went away, got the drinks, got the change, gave it to them, and then decided on another conversational gambit, even though that wasn't wise. He said, "Do you know, I actually used to go out with a woman from Clare, but geez, she was really annoying." "What did he say?" He said, "He thinks he knows you."